a little self-reflection, kind of like there are times I may be like, I don't want to be a podcast never nude, right? I want to actually know what I've got going on sometimes. Oh, what's the temperature where you are? This is not a weather podcast. What's the temperature where you are?
Oh, I'm not actually even wearing the shirt. I thought I was. Yesterday I was wearing the shirt. Today I'm not. It is feels like 28 degrees Celsius. So what's that? That's 28 C and F is 82.
Oh, hey.
So how are we doing? Are we on par?
Yeah, pretty close actually.
Are we contrasting or are we?
We're very similar at the moment. Weather. So I have 87 right now for me. So whatever that is, and see. Click it. 31. It's a good 31.
Yeah. Does it get the? Do you get the humidity where you are?
No, humidity's at 41%, and it typically won't go over about 60 on a good day.
Because your studio is not literally on the ocean, right?
No,
you're offshore.
Yeah, we're I would say about 10 miles inland.
Okay.
So much so that we'll get the coastal fog until about 11, and then after that it'll burn off and get kind of warm. There's a weird phenomena here in southern the Southern California like valley area will get these reverse winds called Santa Ana winds that come blowing out from the desert, sort of where Good Stuff host Aaron L.M. Goodwin is based, and he will just blow as hard as he physically can out towards the ocean, and we will get these crazy, super warm Santa Ana desert winds blowing out towards the ocean, which is no fun.
Because of the dust? Or
because of,
heat?
No, heat. Mostly heat, just hot stuff. Hotstuff.fm. That's completely different, I guess.
Don't go there.
Yeah, I won't go there. Maybe we should own that. I feel like we need to own that.
I'm just going to open a private browser for hot stuff.
That's probably, you know what? Still, getting Goodstuff.xxx might be a good idea, because it's still pretty good. Pretty good.
Kyle, do you need to know how does the world's #1 brand engage with millennials and Gen Z in Latin America? Because that's what you can find out at hotstuff.fm.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, real hot, real viral. Yeah, that doesn't sound like the business we're in. It could eventually be that way. What we're trying to do is to get these podcasts to go super viral.
This is maybe the benefit or the downfall of recording on Friday afternoons when we're punchy from a week of work.
Boy.
Or maybe you don't get punched. I guess you weren't working. So what do you...
You know what? Yeah, I mean, I had a real easy week. It was a work-free week. It was a not cost-free week. We were road tripping throughout California and Oregon and the Oregon coast and Portland and places like that. Namely, I was going up for the Portland Craft Beer Festival.
I was going to say, I bet you there's beer involved.
Oh, plenty of beer. Yeah. We went there for, what's nice about it is it's 3 days. It's over the course of 3 days. And the last day that we went on Sunday was actually family day. So any folks 21 and under were able to go in and obviously not drink beer, but enjoy themselves and be with their dogs and other children and enjoy themselves. Yeah, it was really hot, kind of hot for Portland. They don't get a lot of wind. They don't get those Santa Ana winds.
Did you happen to run into a Brady Plett down there? Because a friend of mine I follow on Instagram, I just saw him literally this morning on his Instagram storying about Portland.
No. I mean, there are a lot of people. I've got to say, if you've heard, there are a lot of people in Portland.
Oh,
a lot of. I
didn't know.
It's one of those places, one of those the hot stuffs, the hot beds of people where actual living human beings decide to have their dwellings.
He has a mustache. semi-ironic mustache,
Right.
long hair.
Yeah, no,
Plays the drums.
Didn't
No?
see many of those. I really would have noticed had had I actually seen this person you were mentioning. It was
Next time.
It was a really good time though. A lot of driving though. The main thing, and this might get into the topic I wanted to talk about today, but man, I feel like I introduced it that way last week. Listening back to let me just tease it a tiny bit. I won't yet. I won't fully get into it, but I'm going to tease it a tiny bit and also just open the kimono all the way. It's actually off. It's fully off right now over at hotstuff.fm. I'm opening it all the way. We took a road trip, and there was a whole bunch of podcast listening that happened on this road trip. So, yeah, 12 hours in the car, plus another 6 hours to go from the Bay Area down to Southern California.
And do you and your spouse, life partner, do you enjoy the drive, or is it the first hour enjoyable, and then after that you're like, let's just freaking get there? Or how do the cats handle the journey?
It's okay. It's all right for the most part. I love driving. I'm one of those kinds of people that just loves to have control over the whole situation and will slap on the cruise control and just pilot a vehicle for 12 straight hours. That is my idea of enjoyment. Why? I don't know. Probably a symptom of being in the car for many, many hours as a child, jumping between different Central Californian cities while playing soccer on a traveling team. Lots and lots of driving. That's probably the main reason. I guess the other one actually is podcast listening. It gives us a whole bunch of time to either listen to a book or listen to podcasts or whatever. But that's what we did.
It's a funny thing of people saying, "Oh, I don't have that's my common complaint now is I don't have a commute anymore, so I don't listen to as many podcasts," which is kind of funny because there's definitely it's cheaper to listen to podcasts not driving or not paying for a bus or whatever.
Yeah,
just sit somewhere for an hour and listen to a podcast instead of sitting in a car idling in traffic for an hour. But somehow,
right?
Yeah, we're gonna circle back to the podcasting. Let's tungle that for a moment. And the other thing I was thinking of, this sort of explains some things in terms of our homework, our follow up from last episode. Definitely last episode. I don't remember if it was last week. The video game session we had last time, and our homework was to play the respective game that each of us was addicted to. Cats was yours.
That's right.
For me. Clash Royale, was the one from me to you.
Yeah.
And listeners will obviously not know this, but about halfway through, since last we recorded, I got this request on my Clash Royale clan from Dog Burps. I was like, oh, I guess Kyle's checking out Clash Royale. And then I got a second request from someone else I didn't recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little while later, it said, "This is Kyle's wife. Can I play too?" So now, knowing that you're on a road trip, all of a sudden this makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's important to not say username, so I won't. But because up to this point, it's been the clan that we have, Good Stuff Clan. You can join it if you're out there and listening and play Clash Royale. Join our clan. It's a happy group of 5 people now. Because up to this point, 4 people. It's just been my son and I. We had some of his friends in it for a while, but they all were like, "No, we wanted to have our own clan," and I didn't want my son to go join their clan, so I didn't let him. But yeah, so now we've got. But anyways, your wife was playing a lot more, so I'm guessing she wasn't driving.
That is absolutely the case. And when she did see me playing the game, she was interested in. Well, I guess I can run down just my general experience of it. First, it was a whole lot going on. It was really nice that it kind of eased me in with a bunch of tutorials, kind of like, hey, this is how you play a card. This is how you put stuff on the board. And then we will force you to upgrade a couple of these so you can kind of walk through the process and see what it's like to play the game. But like most games, most free-to-play games like this, there is a whole bunch of other stuff going on the screen. So there's news. There are these. I mean, when I wasn't in a clan, there was one kind of completely useless tab, which was fine. I kind of got rid of all the clutter that was on there. But there's just, let me boot up the game right now. There's just stuff on this game that just seems so super, whatever the word is. You know what I'm trying to say. Like you don't need all of this on here. I'm gonna open a couple of while we're talking. I'll open a couple of chests. So let's see. It's the same sort of system of the game that I recommended to you, where over time you're opening up these chests and getting cards to upgrade certain parts of the thing. You can skip the time requirements for these. Like right now, I've got one that was initially 8 hours to open this chest. It's 3 hours, 40 minutes left. I can open it if I want to, if I spend some gems, et cetera, et cetera. The style of gameplay I've got for games like this typically is, why put a number on these for me to open them now if you don't want me to open them now? So I'll use everything, use all my gems, use all my coins up until I have 0 with no strategy, and just upgrade everything as quickly as I possibly can. My wife, on the other hand, who did get thoroughly into this game, is sort of the opposite way. She'll save everything, use the time, and upgrade very strategically. She's not upgrading things that aren't in her gameplay hand, but she'll leave everything, leave all the cards that aren't in her hand out, as to not actually upgrade her character, which is just the like micro strategies involved in games like this is very, very interesting to me. But overall, I've been really enjoying it. I've been playing a couple times per day. In the time that we did go on vacation and come back, they introduced a 2v2 mode. I don't know if that's something they've done before, but going from the 1 versus 1 to like the ability to play the game with the person sitting next to me is incredible. It completely changed my enjoyment of the game and change strategy and everything like that.
Interesting. Because that's like, my son has since moved on and doesn't actually, long story short, he's not playing video games for the summer for reasons that I won't go into on the podcast, but parenting. So I've lost any chance of, unless I disobey my own rules, our family rules, and lost any chance of having a partner in the room with me playing it since they introduced that thing. That they tested it a while ago, but even playing with another person wherever they happen to be in the world, it's a unique little, I don't know, play mechanic that does change the game a lot. And it's hard to explain unless you played the game, obviously, to know why. But you're basically playing cards at different times together in an attempt to defeat 2 other random people paired up or who happen to know each other. But it's and then you can't talk to each other when you're obviously not in the room together.
Right.
And so you're left to the mercy of just hoping you can show each other the card you're about to play by sort of holding it out on the field of battle. But that's as much as you can kind of communicate. And then there's the chat window that you can send. What's nice about the chat in this game that I'll say is you cannot just type anything. You're limited to 6, I think it is, predefined messages of good game, good luck, thank you.
Yeah. And then like faces, like these emoji.
Yeah.
And my favorite of course, of all of these, whether I win or lose, is to do the crying face one, because the sound that comes along with that is just incredible. My wife hates it. We're about to lose, and I'll just start crying over and over. It brings these little moments of joy to my life. It's not a serious game at all. But from what I've played so far, it's quite enjoyable, but also very easy to just like get up and leave this, delete the game off of my phone, and never ever play ever again.
I don't actually feel as much. I don't know what there's probably somewhere there's a metric of how long I've actually played it. I would be probably embarrassed to actually admit publicly what it actually is, how long I've played. But right, you're online right now, I guess.
Yep.
Dog Burps is requesting. There.
Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
We should just do a battle right now, actually.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Here, we'll edit this in post, but I'm gonna pull this over here. I wonder. See, Google will have this music in the background. We should just have this music constantly in the background while we're doing this podcast. It's super epic. It's pretty good. Google's sort of like Game Center equivalent has a really cool leveling up system where you'll get basically Xbox style achievements as you do certain things in the game. I guess it probably works the same exact way that Game Center does, but they'll also do gameplay recording, and they'll put your little like front-facing camera avatar on the bottom left-hand corner in this little circle as you record gameplay. It's pretty cool. But
sounds like that might be coming in iOS 11 or something. But yeah, something similar to that where you can record more.
Right,
but
like a Let's Play on your phone, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess.
Gasp.
Yeah. Let's do play with a friend.
Yeah, I'll wait for your.
Booyah!
I just started it again.
Okay.
I didn't get a notification. I started a new battle. That's the only thing I saw.
All right, yeah. Go ahead and start one with me then.
See what happens if I do it. Share a clan. So if you go to the clan screen, you might have to. Oh, there's 3 of us online. Maybe is your wife playing?
That's a good question.
Maybe she'll join instead of you.
She is. She's online. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. So who actually is this, you or is this your wife that I'm playing with? Tober.
Yeah, you right now are playing a game with my wife, and I can watch this battle.
That's hilarious. Oh dear. Oh boy. I don't have any anti-air stuff. Tell your wife to. Oh, I guess she's not there with you, right?
No, she's not here.
Oh, yeah, we lost her.
Oh my god. Wow, and the thing is, you are very high level, and she is level 4. So the combo here is
it's a very non-natural. I wonder if we got paired up with. We got paired up with level 9 people, I think, right? Looks like. Right. Boom. Win.
nice.
Hold it out. High five your wife.
Yeah.
I've never met her, never talked to her in my life, but I just won.
Hey,
Clash Royale game.
Yeah. The only thing you have in common is that I am a terrible teammate, just across the board.
So you guys would be paired similarly, level wise or whatever, right? I guess.
Yeah. So it works out pretty well when we do go play someone. That battle was pretty intense.
It ramps up. I'm sure. I wish I could easily, like, I can't keep my account, log out, and start a new account to see, because like you said, even the tutorial level stuff wasn't there really when I started, and so it's a different experience now starting the game, I'm sure, compared to what I did a year ago or whatever it was.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'd be curious to see what it feels like, because I'm sure at the lower levels you're dealing with more novice players as you're rising up the ranks, whereas you get to whatever, I don't know what level I'm on, 9 or 10 or something. And so these are people who've either cheated and have bought their way, I guess that's not cheating, but bought their way to the top, or have actual good playing techniques or whatever, I guess. So.
Right. And then I think it's pretty fair from what I've played so far. The balance is pretty good where they'll pair you against someone that has kind of similar stuff. It seems there is definitely a bit of luck of the draw for the types of new characters that you pull out of the chests as you earn them. So I believe, let me pull mine up. I believe I earned one of these level 1 witches, which is one that I was playing against but had not received the card for yet. And so I felt kind of at a disadvantage in that way, even though the person I was playing against was the same level as me. But overall, it's pretty good. It's yeah,
in basic explanation, I think we probably explained it, but like you pick out of a total, I don't know how many I have here. Let's say there's 30 possible cards you could use, characters, but cards basically. You have to pick 8 to use for your deck, your card deck that you're going to play with as the warriors in your battle. And they all have different attributes and styles and things like that. And so there is kind of a strategy to it. And if you look online, you can see like for level 9, then the best deck to use, or level 7, the best deck to use and stuff. And I've kind of I tried to avoid that and just had a little bit of fun playing and figured out a combo that kind of works for me, and make small changes as new things come along. But yeah.
But this style of gameplay for sure makes me potentially want to look up something like Hearthstone or a game like that.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
Hearthstone is a little more chill because there isn't the real time like, oh shoot, they're doing that now, and if I don't do something to stop it, they could just win the game right now. Whereas Hearthstone is much more of a true card game, back and forth, taking turns back and forth. But
right.
Whereas this is like has the real time strategy to it as well, where stuff goes like they could send one. You know, there's people with really good combo techniques of like some land based thing and an air thing, and then something else coming behind them, and all of a sudden you're just done, and there's no
right.
Doesn't matter what you do. But.
Yeah, a lot of the attacks on the cards themselves, like if flipping over the baseball cards here of these characters, it'll be damage per second is what it's mentioned in. So it's kind of like it really, really depends on how quickly you put these down, on what millisecond you put these things down, and how much damage each of them does to each other per second.
Like when you think of the latency of just like playing it online with now 4 people in 4 different places in the world, and somehow it seems to be able to handle it okay. So there, I just put it out to the clan again. We'll try. Unless your wife jumps on again. Or are you online still, or is she?
Let's see. No, I'm online. Chat. Join. There we go.
Okay. Dog burps and Chris.
So I'm gonna go right. Send a big army and a level 2 person this side.
I'll join you and throw a log down there. There we go. Perfectly. They walked into the plan. Yeah, that bridge is good.
Oh, man. Now, take a look at the top. The 2 players that we're playing right now. Their name is one version of the name is all caps, and one version of the name is, I guess, camel cased. My understanding is that this is someone who potentially has 2 devices right now, an iPad and an iPhone, or iOS and Android, and they are strategizing with themselves on a 2v2 on 2 different devices, but at once.
You got anything you can drop?
I've got absolutely nothing. This is bad. Yeah, I'm putting something down to get in the way. There we go.
Yeah, I'm guessing either it's like one person with 2 devices sitting there, or sister, brother, friends, who are sitting beside each other who have played this a lot.
Right. The Git Rex, I think. Yeah.
Combinations.
Oh my gosh.
Insane.
This is a nightmare. This is it. This is absolutely it. Well, there you go.
The smiling, of course, the smiling. Response with the teams.
There we go.
Good game. That's the best one, actually. When you know someone when they like completely crush you and they send the good game one and the crying emoji.
Right. Please get out of here.
That's where you just want to punch them.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the fist? Where's the punch in the face?
So originally, before you joined or before you started playing the game, those emoji, like you can now mute the other emoji, right? And so they don't know that you're muting them. They still keep sending them, right? Or whatever. They don't get notified anyways if you mute their emoji stuff that they're sending you. Mm-hmm. Before they did that, there was an interim period where you could mute them, but you'd still see their like guy on the field shake like he's sending you something. So you still knew they were shouting at you, but it's like their mouth was duct taped or something.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear what they were saying.
Huh. Wow.
But now you can at least mute it if they're really chatty, sending lots of stuff anyways. So
yeah, most folks I've played with aren't. It's this like random matching and random match play. I think that the game I suggested to you and this game you suggested to me have in common, and it's kind of crazy, especially for I think you and I both use our actual like Twitter handle screen names where if you decided like, oh hey, I just played this person, I'm going to go look up who they are. Would totally absolutely connect to my life, which I guess after talking about our location services stuff and privacy concerns there last time,
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a good idea.
I know in hindsight, maybe I should have, if there was some idiot out there in Clash Royale land, who had a grudge because I beat them in the game.
Right.
Or because I sent a crying emoji when they crushed me. Yeah. Then I could see them. I guess the worst they might, well, who knows? Gamers
absolutely who knows? But I mean, it's sort of, it's up to us. I mean, we're putting that out there, and it's just a very strange, slightly anonymous, but in an instant, absolutely not anonymous.
Yeah, that's the internet for you in a nut, where it's like
right.
You go from being completely anonymous and all of a sudden somebody connects one dot. Or like Facebook, you put your phone number in thinking it's for security, and then all of a sudden they're like comparing phone numbers of people, and all of a sudden you're connected with some person that you never intended to be connected to. And
right, exactly. Or the instance where like you're able to look up someone's name and see where they've lived, like their entire history is on the internet somewhere. And the second that you start connecting those dots of screen name to actual name and that's it. Game over, man. Game over.
Totally.
So what do you think about cats? I mean, not the animal, but the actual game, CATS.
So is it Cats or Cats 2? Because I noticed there's like a second one already or something.
Are you kidding me? There's a second one.
I think, unless I was looking at the wrong thing. So anyways, the one I've gotten is like, I think it's what you had, Cats, CATS. There's like sort of go-kart kind of esque things that you're building and upgrading. Yeah,
so I guess just a quick synopsis. It's if you've ever watched those like Robo War things on Discovery Channel or TLC or wherever they used to be played, but these folks would put together these tiny little robots that would fight in a arena, the plastic wrapped arena, with spinning blades and not bombs or rockets or anything like that, but just actual like physical melee weapons where they would try and either flip the other vehicle or whatever. This is the actual real life robo fighting things. Take that concept and add rockets and put cats inside of them who pilot them.
For some reason it's cats driving them.
Right.
But
right.
Stranger things have happened, Angry Birds, etc. So
it feels a little violent, kind of maybe not okay at first glance. But over, I don't know, over a little while, I've just become numb to the fact that I'm just blowing cats up into smithereens and they're popping their parachutes and flying down to the ground. Just seems to be, that's just how it is.
Cats don't actually die, right? So. Or do they? Maybe I haven't gotten far enough.
No, it's kind of like an Ender's Game situation where you're fighting these cats, but they look like they're just kind of popping out of existence, but in actuality, this is how we control the feral cat population.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm playing it now because what I find frustrating, or can be frustrating, or can be your thing, I guess. And for me, it's less my thing. Is the way that like you do get to like customize your cart or whatever, and the Catmobile, and similar mechanics of like a chest opening up a box or whatever, opening up with more toys that your cat can use to equip your thing with. What I don't get is the fact that you don't get to actually control it in battle.
Right.
So you're just watching whatever the way that you've configured your thing with the type of weapon, the type of, so I'm going to put a chainsaw on the front of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some sort of sneaky bonus. But then you just tap and you watch them fight some other guy's creation, which is kind of what the Robot Wars idea is. And then you go back and make modifications based on what happened in that battle. But then there's different variations on carts that you're fighting. So like my cart last time just drove right up on top of the other one and couldn't actually hit it anymore, which is kind of frustrating because you're like, well, just back up, reduce, So
if you had some sort of like physical control over what was happening, you would be able to affect some change on the actual outcome of that. Yeah, it was pretty frustrating. It's going back to me wanting to road trip and having control over a car. This is the exact opposite of that. You sort of just, you set it, you Ron Popeil it and you set it and forget it. And you wait for your little car to destroy the other one. And it depends on what level you are, but a lot of times you do start seeing these patterns of, okay, well, with this particular body, I just roll right over the top, and that's I don't want that to happen. And so there were parts of this game, at least initially, when it first launched, where they didn't allow you to create multiple different cars that you could kind of shuffle in and out at any given time. You would need to completely deconstruct and reconstruct a car to be able to, say, beat someone like that. So their car is shaped that way. You know you're not supposed to go over the top of them. You need to actually have your rockets hit them. You would need to deconstruct the one you have, reconstruct it into a format that could beat that guy, and then go from there. And I guess they're changing the game quite a bit. One thing I'd like to, I guess, get from you, aside from the fact that you can't actually affect any change other than construction in a fight, have you enjoyed any of the betting, any of the actual watching other people fight and betting your parts on any part of the game?
I've only gotten very minimally into the game. I've started like a tournament thing, and I had just passed the betting part where you can bet your parts, and so I haven't seen sort of the result. I think the fight is in 3 minutes or something or whatever. I guess that's their way of like getting you back. It is an interesting mechanic just to get you back into the game, obviously for reasons other than your own battles per se. But again, I have a hard time. To me, there is less. Maybe it's just the way my brain works or whatever. I would be more inclined to watch a Clash Royale battle on Twitch or something like that, let's say, than something like this. Although the betting mechanic is kind of fun because then you get to sort of, I could see my son going crazy for it because he'd love to play that and like know that there's something at stake, even if he's not actually playing in the actual game match, whatever.
Well, there's the other part where those typically last, like a Clash Royale game would last. I mean, ours lasted probably close to 2 minutes. The one you played with my wife was about maybe 3, almost 4 minutes. These can be around 2 to 10 seconds, maybe.
Right.
And to have to sit through that entire waiting period to wait for a 10-second battle that you need to watch to see what happens and see what the outcome is, I find the reward is very, very limiting. I mean, if you do win, you get this upgrade, you get a 1% or you get a 3% upgrade to whatever part you're looking at. But I mean, in the long run, it's not the amount of effort I'm putting in to actually go back and watch this is totally not worth what I get back.
Yeah, that's kind of based on one attempt at it anyways, was kind of like my impression. And there is a lot of like stuff going on too in the game where if it becomes too complicated, like you sort of alluded to even with Clash Royale, where there's like stats upon stats and like, I just want to know that this guy throws faster than the other one or whatever. That kind of stuff kind of takes away from, it's a fun mechanic for the game for sure, but I don't want to play like Axis and Allies, if you ever played that board game, versus playing something quicker, like a 30-minute board game versus a 2.5-hour board game. Mm-hmm. There's a time and a place for both. And for me, the mobile gaming space is definitely in the quick and easy. Don't want to have to remember too much from the last time I played and stats and numbers and that kind of stuff of the game from play session to play session.
Right. So in general, what did you think? And what did you think about, especially one of the topics that we've covered before, the notifications that you would get from this game?
Oh, I turned them all off right away.
Okay. All right.
So
all right.
That's where I don't let games dictate to me when I should, because even like other games like Clash Royale that I already know I enjoy playing, I deliberately turn it off because I don't want to be that guy at the barbecue who's like quickly obsessively checking his game or whatever because it's time to open a chest and stuff, because I know that's what they're going to try and do. I'm assuming is the notifications anyways that they'll try and do. And so no judgment on people who do, if that's your thing, just that's not my thing. So is that your thing? No, like the ding and you're like Pavlovian, go back to get the Petri dish?
No, it's probably just like it's what everyone thinks it is. I've got 30 seconds while I'm actually number twoing, and I'm gonna go and play my game for 5 seconds. Yeah, that's kind of it, and make sure that I've unlocked the chest that I need to unlock. Part of the way that this game, the Cats game, sends notifications is if you play a couple of rounds, you've opened a little crate, and then you leave the game without actually opening a crate, 5 to 10 minutes later, they'll send you a notification saying, hey, by the way, you didn't open a crate. Do you want to open one? Which is just like, wow, oh boy, that's one more little tiny nagging thing in the back of my head that's just like, man, you're not playing your game. You're not playing. Come on, get back here, bud. We need you. And I guess I enjoy it because I leave them on. Oh, what's wrong with me? It's kind of it's a masochistic kind of like, man, I love the just ocean of notifications I get every day. It's like a hot wind from the desert, just all the time, all the notifications.
So, Kyle, talk to me about podcasting.
Well, listening. Chris, see, that's where you want me to go with this. Being a successful podcast listener is really about making sure you put out 3 episodes into your podcast catcher of choice at any one moment.
Consistent schedule. Consistency is the key, I think, to listening.
That's right. That's right. Make sure every other podcast that you put out is about how you haven't put out your podcast yet. And although it's coming back, get ready because it's coming back.
Are you trolling Show Me Your Mic right now?
Boy, am I? Is that the one? I don't
think it even qualifies anymore at this point. But
I feel I was kind of going for hey, this is my first blog post.
Yeah.
Next one. Hey, sorry I missed all the blog posts. I'm about to come back and do more blog posts, guys. Don't worry.
I just read an article on blogging, and I'm really excited to get back into blogging.
I'm ready.
Smash cut to 2 years later.
Right. Hey,
sorry guys.
Boy, have I missed you all, man. It's been great. Life's been crazy, but now I'm back.
Dog.
I know. I got a dog. I got a brother.
But I'm starting a dog blog now.
It's the dogblog.fm. Hot stuff. Yeah. Podcast listening, boy. Being on the side of podcast production and actually putting stuff out, you would think that we don't have a whole lot of time to do the podcast listening thing, but I feel like it's one of those things that when I started wanting to be behind the microphone and get better at explaining myself as I fumble over being able to explain myself, I needed to listen to more shows. What I wanted to make was an emulation of what I was listening to when I was sort of wanting to get into podcasting, and it was listening to programs that and shows and whatnot that got me into actually doing this show with you, which is now close to 5 episodes. This will be number 5, and then getting in 350 episodes of transmission and morning show onto Goodstuff.fm. And it's still, I think, a part of understanding the whole of production and the podcast listening community, I would say. I don't want to get to the point where all I do is put stuff out and I don't ever listen to any other podcasts. There are so many people out there putting out good stuff that I really feel like it's our duty as podcast producers to continue to actually listen to shows and stuff. And there are also a whole bunch of other shows out there that absolutely do not deserve to be listened to at all. But on the good side and on the side of like, man, it feels really great to be in the Wild West of audio production here.
Yeah.
Podcasting and wanting to actually put your own show out was from listening to other folks.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like it's one of those things where if you've played a particular sport, let's say, or maybe you're a voracious reader, I feel like at some point you want to like see what it feels like on the other side of the coin, the sausage maker.
Mm-hmm. You want to be the one that's ground up and put into a casing.
Exactly. And that's podcasting.
Yeah.
Actually, you think we're joking, but sometimes it feels a lot like that.
Seriously, sprinkle in a little bit of CPMs, and boy, I'm a sausage now. I'm a spicy link.
But yeah, definitely listening to podcasts inspired me to make podcasts, and then now making podcasts, I do go back to the well, so to speak, and need to listen to shows where it inspires me and motivates me to do something like that. And all too often, I end up sort of chasing the success of someone else and thinking that's going to be my success in podcasting because it works for them. And more, I've learned that which is kind of like us doing this show. It's kind of inspired by other two-person podcasts out there in a way, but also just recognizing that we can't be pick your podcast of choice that you happen to listen to, that I'm not that person and Kyle's not the other person,
right.
The other host or whatever,
right.
And just need to be our thing. And it actually, in some ways, even on our own network here, I guess We're Grown-Ups Now is another podcast that a friend of mine, Carrie, does. And in not that this is about making podcasts, but it kind of all circles together for both of us, I think. But in a lot of ways, her and a friend have kind of broken a lot of the rules of podcasting in terms of how you're supposed to do it and consistency and all those things that we kind of joke about, and still have had good success, but they don't even really care. They're just having good conversations about life stuff and putting it out as a podcast. And lots of people are gravitating to it, and it's interesting to listen to. And so that's kind of in a layman's way, or a quick way, I guess, in a nut, is kind of what Good Stuff is about in a way, right? Like we're chasing after success in a manner of speaking, like we want to do things well, but not like we crack the whip on audio production and quality and thumb our noses at and throw out episodes because we think it's going to somehow cause the network or cause listeners to leave or whatever necessarily.
Not to turn it into an episode of Show Me Your Mic, but absolutely, I completely agree with you, although not a contrasting view. You're right. I guess We're Grown-Ups Now is one of those where, and I think to some level, Morning Show has been also that way, where there are parts of the year where we just don't put out an episode. And
right.
I think there's some sort of agreement. Maybe this is different between different podcasts or different networks, but there are some listeners who are like, man, if you don't put out an episode on Thursday, I am going to lose it. I need my episode on Thursday. At 4 p.m. or whatever it is, when you set the expectation for listeners, they're going to have expectations, period. And so I guess maybe it is a little bit about over at Goodstuff.fm. You are listening to a show from that right now.
Take a drink every time.
That's right. We just don't. And it's not to say one way is better or worse. It's just to say that I guess podcasts as a medium in general have sort of set that expectation for listeners where, yes, I get it weekly. Or if you're going to make it bi-weekly, you need to tell me you're going to make it bi-weekly. Or if it's going to be sporadic, I guess I just sit back and wait until I get another one. And I think all of those are completely valid. There's no reason. And even say a show like was S-Town one of those where they just decided, hey, we're going to put out all the episodes at once. It's just a flood of episodes. You go and you listen to the season, you binge it, you do whatever you want, but what we're going to do is we're going to put out all these at once. And I don't know. There's not one more valid way of doing that over another. It just is kind of how it is. And I think for us, you and I on this program in particular, we're doing the sort of weekly thing and pulling up a topic mainly because what we've listened to in the past is that way, and what we can sustainably have hopefully an interesting conversation about is that way as well. We will put it out weekly. We'll think of something completely different and hopefully put it out the next week and be just as funny or terrible.
And I think there is an element of like consistency to a personality driven podcast that helps it grow. And we've, like you said, even with Morning Show and my stuff daily is Show Me Your Mic, I've been sporadic. And so for me, it's more just a matter of like wanting to try the other side of this equation, where just trying to be consistent with releasing a new episode every Monday as the thing that we do. And not purely because I want to drive it to being super successful. I mean, we'd obviously happily have lots of listeners and a great community around the show, but also just to try something different than what I've been doing thus far with the podcast. So, and like I said, an excuse to talk just to each other on a weekly basis that requires us to do it is kind of fun as well. So that's where I think a lot of the podcasts, when I listen to them, the ones I listen to tend to be towards the 2 to maybe 3 people talking. And then there's a bunch of those, but then there's also more like then the other flip of that, I guess, is sort of like the heavily produced podcast, NPR style or whatever kind of style you may find there. Like a new one that just came out called 30 for 30. I think it's ESPN.
Yeah. Yep.
It's super popular right away out of the gate. Like obviously having the backing of ESPN and stuff isn't going to hurt, but telling a story in what I think like 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour, documenting some sort of sport related thing that happened in the past in audio form and telling that story. And so it's a great thing you can just put on in the background, listen to it. I tend to listen while I'm coding or working. Obviously, if I'm editing a podcast for a client, it's hard to listen to podcasts while I'm doing that. But otherwise, yeah, I don't commute very much anymore, but when I did, even today, I put on a podcast for the 20-minute drive across town kind of thing. But I find in terms of, I know we're sort of skipping around here a bit, but like in terms of listening, for me, it wasn't actually losing the commute. It's that my kids got old enough that they could understand the podcasts, and podcasts aren't always kid friendly. At least you don't always know ahead of time if they're going to be, just based on a topic. And so it's hard to listen when they're around. Although the one exception to that has been, I'll just throw a recommendation out there for if you're into marketing or just interesting stories about marketing. CBC Radio has a podcast called Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, I believe is his name. And it's a produced show, but it's a nice, quick half an hour to an hour long episodes on stories of marketing stuff over the years. So if you liked Mad Men, you'd love this. He's a former marketer, kind of telling the stories of behind the scenes kind of stuff and how it all worked out and things like that over the years. So
he's kind of got a Louis Anderson look to him, but I will add it here and check it out.
It's a good call.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't have the Louis Anderson voice. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Oh my gosh. I don't know. That's another part of podcast listening that, man, if it's not produced or it doesn't sound good, or your microphones just sound like they're in the other room, I have such a hard time latching onto it. I will, though, continue to listen if I either know the folks on the podcast or know that the conversation is going to be real great. I'll try and stick with it, but man, does it make it tough. But some of the podcasts that I've tried to really get into as of late are like actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcasts. So folks, either playing role-playing games or actual Dungeons and Dragons. There's a really great one I listened to that started out so rough, but it's a whole group of women who decided to play Dungeons and Dragons. Let me grab the name of it so that I don't sound like a complete idiot. See, the thing is, I have too many. How
many podcasts are you subscribed to?
4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 4 times 16.
Pause for math. Just
64. So I listen to 64 podcasts.
I have 45 that I'm subscribed to. Do you actually listen to every episode, or
no? See, the thing. So the thing is with let me find the name of this first, because it's going to drive me absolutely. Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice is the show that.
Nice.
Yeah. Right.
We've reached the food truck stage of podcasting now. I think where all the it used to be you had to be on the ball with the name SEO. This is a podcast about Apple computers or whatever. Now we've reached food truck pun naming conventions. Yeah. So sorry, what was the name of it?
Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice. Let's see. I'm about 3 episodes in, and I know that they get better. But they just had their season finale part 2, it seems. So it's a good time to catch up and try and get on board with it. But that's sort of been one of those things that I find it kind of hard to get involved with a show when it is difficult to listen to. Even the hyper overproduced ones is sort of the other side of the spectrum, where like, man, this sounds like it has been created as a Sunday morning radio segment that is on the air for an hour in upstate New York as something, and you have overcompressed the voices to the point of just it sounds like the bass in my car is going to explode, and right. Some of those shows I can absolutely not handle. I'm looking at my grid here of these shows, and it is like a black hole of colors. Just,
yeah,
I'm getting sucked in right now.
It is a funny thing, the podcast artwork world and we've again, knowing how the sausage is made, I guess, influences a bit of like looking at some of this stuff, and you can definitely tell when a show has put a lot of thought into it and when a show has just said, F it, we'll figure that out later. And like, I don't generally like, there's some, and I'm on the side of like, who cares, because the show will live and die on the story that you're telling is my general sentiment. But I know there's a whole world of like, your first impression is the artwork that they see in iTunes or Google Play or whatever, and that can definitely, like, I mean, you said even with the Louis Armstrong look or Louis Armstrong, Louis
Anderson,
yeah. Not Louis Anderson.
Louis Armstrong's a completely different guy.
Yeah. That's a Wonderful World guy, right?
Yes, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. He's a trumpeter. Trumpeter. That, I mean, or even like WTF with Mark Maron, you know, like you look at that, you're like, he looks like a hippie. I don't like hippies, so I'm not going to listen or whatever. And you miss out on some good stories or interviews with people. Right.
And so I get that, but yeah, on podcast creation side, I feel like I'm on that side of like, who cares? Just listen to the show. That's what's going to tell you if it's good. Don't worry about their stupid artwork. Like that happens to be my dumb face on there or whatever. Just listen to the show and that'll tell you if you want to listen and subscribe.
Right.
Which you should, if you're listening to this and debating whether to subscribe.
Goodstuff.fm/dailysh.
No, this is high contrast.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, no, it's your face. You want, hey, Chris, if you want your face on our podcast artwork, I guess I have to.
That was in my contract with our lawyers.
That's right.
I'm still waiting for the update.
You're right.
Artwork.
Yep. Only green M&Ms. All right.
Why do I have another one with my face? Oh, that's my Huff Duffer. That's a whole nother ball.
Yes. Yeah. Which is, yeah, I don't want to get into that at all.
No.
Do folks still use that service?
Yeah, Jeffrey Keith does. He's the guy who created it.
Okay.
No, I'm being mean.
The guy who made it is using it. Sure. All right.
I'm terrible. It's an awesome thing, but yeah, we don't. I love it, but I forget to use it all the time. So that's just the way it is. So
yeah, the podcast artwork is one of those things that we have rethought. I mean, on the podcasting side, we've rethought it so many different times before, but it doesn't typically influence whether or not I'm going to listen to a show. Folks are listening to this because of the content, and I think that's, from the podcasting world, that's the disparity I find in actually putting one out and finding ones that I enjoy. Because when I do listen to one, all I can think about is how they made it. All I can think about is what kind of microphone they're on. It's bad.
Which goes back to like the sport thing too, I think, like, or whatever it is that is your thing that you then try and do the other side of. Once you start actually making the thing or playing the sport or whatever, it does take away from your ability to just enjoy the thing, because you can't stop thinking about how they made it, why they did it that way, what's going on behind. Even like for me with watching, not that I watch a bunch of them, but like say Twitch game streamers. Now that I've tried doing it myself, I'm spending as much time wondering what gear they're using and which software they're using and which whatever, and not actually caring even about the game that they're actually playing or whatever, which is the whole point of what they're doing. And so podcasting for me too is the same way. Like, what kind of mic is he using? What kind of headphones did he have? As if any of that really matters when it comes down to attracting listeners. Because as we've seen, like super popular shows with crappy audio, long, drawn out, boring discussions, but because of the personality, I think that's Yeah.
Yeah.
Personality or the story.
The information too. I think folks are going to podcasts because they want the information that's in there. They're picking and choosing. Maybe not one of those daily podcasts like the New York Times or anything, but they're going in and saying like, oh, I want to listen to this, and we found this at Good Stuff. I want to listen to this interview with this particular person, and that's it. I'm not subscribing. I'm not doing anything. I'm not interacting at all with this show other than listening to this episode with the person I wanted to hear, and that's fine. I think that's a totally acceptable way to listen to podcasts. I myself can't stand that. I can't. I need to have some sort of continuity line between these different episodes of a show, which is probably another reason why I find it pretty difficult to subscribe to a show that doesn't put out episodes regularly. I really like to listen to episodes back to back to back, especially while driving. And something like a show I actually don't listen to anymore, but I did listen to, and I think I listened to every single episode they had, but No Such Thing as a Fish is one of those QI.com podcasts from the folks who make the QI show. The question show.
Maybe?
Yeah, it is a question. It's a show based on facts and questions, I believe. And it's a British thing. It's really, really good. But I remember quite vividly, if my life was measured in podcasts I listened to, I remember quite vividly a road trip I took to Yosemite in California and listened to every single episode that they had. And so it was nice to be able to have this huge plethora of episodes to listen to back to back to back to back without really thinking or waiting around for another one to show up. While that's not really a way that I'll judge listening to future podcasts, it did help me get into that one in particular, because the quirks that you hear from the characters of the people in the show, the hosts, there's a through line from episode to episode that just makes me feel like you know them very well.
Mm-hmm.
That's
where I think both of us sort of at our core level of like the kind of podcast we want to produce too is like striving after that kind of community follower, listener, whatever you want to call it. Not engagement, but like the reason why they would want to tune in is because even something like Morning Show, right? Like in episode 272, you made a joke about a thing, and then episode 325, you referenced that joke or whatever. And like rewarding listeners who are paying attention and who have been around for a while still like making new stuff up as you go. But, and not just all about jokes, but like that idea of like, and same thing on Dailyish too, where it just got like, I don't know who's out there listening, but I enjoy the fact that somebody knows and references and is able to sort of follow along my journey of whatever the point is of that show.
Well, but like the
my
whole
life or whatever.
Yeah, this is not a weather podcast. Like if you just a singular phrase that ties each and every episode together, not to like dissect your own thing that you create, but it's sausage. I don't want to really know how your sausage
show me
is
your
made.
sausage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's just being on the side that we're on. I feel that there's something unique probably about the way that we perceive these episodes that is not typical of most listeners to this, or even folks who have never heard of what a podcast is, and they find out that, oh yeah, I know there's YouTube, but there's like a YouTube for audio where I can just listen to these things, and they're not books. They're not, it's just two people talking. Well, one, that sounds super dumb. It sounds really, really dumb. But on the other hand, I could be completely interested in that. And I just don't think we're typical. We are not on the side of that right now. We were at one point. And maybe there's something about how the entire podcast listening world has changed since folks like the CBC or New York Times or ABC or like these huge mega media corporations are starting to put out podcasts and audio content, and like we're up against that. We are in iTunes. We're on the same platform that these huge million downloads per episode podcasts are on right now. And it kind of gives me that feeling that we're cable access a little bit. Like we are the channel that you flip to on accident and you see like, like it's Kyle and Chris talking to me from the middle of nowhere.
Like on, I was just making a note on Pocket Cast, the app, they have like a network page where they list networks, and we happen to be a network that's listed. And, we're on the third page, I think, as I scroll through, and there's the usual suspects of tech stuff and Twit and Gimlet, NPR, and then Good Stuff and a couple other tech podcasties, Maximum Fun. And on the fourth page, after Good Stuff is there, is BBC, ABC, ESPN,
right,
CNET. And so it's like
The Guardian, what?
Yeah. I can tell you that doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of numbers. Like ABC still has way more listeners than we do. By magnitude of 6 million %.
Okay. All right.
I guess we'll give that away. Open the kimono a little bit.
Hey, that's one of the, that's part of the podcast world that is not talked about. The listeners have they probably have no interest in how podcasts are doing, what the downloads are, or anything like that. They could not care less about what the downloads are for a particular show or for a particular episode or a network or whatever. But that is something over at Goodstuff.fm that we do try to do, take a drink, that we do try to do and try and be a bit transparent with our numbers, with listeners and say like, hey, you helped us get to a certain point and we are appreciative of your interest in our shows. And I think it's kind of service to the tech industry side of podcasting that wants to probably know what that's like, and hopefully a little encouraging for folks who are unsure about whether or not they want to get into podcasting, because there is a ton of room for everyone to be in this. And as disparaging as seeing CNET or seeing Gimlet or seeing big, huge networks like that on there, even seeing our network on there, it may feel disparaging to folks and say like, well, I don't want to be next to those guys. I don't want to be put on the same level as that, because what I have to say they think is not that interesting, or their idea, they are unsure if it's going to be any good. I think that's part of the value, and I think that's part of the awesomeness of podcasting right now, is that you can be put next to those folks.
Yeah, exactly. And we have, on Good Stuff alone, we have shows that have thousands of subscribers, and we have shows that have 20 subscribers, like this one right now. As of episode 5, we're recording and looking at the number, it says 20, whether that's 25 or 15 or whatever, we don't know exactly. But so it's like we're talking to you 20 people out there and hoping some other people eventually find it. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. And we don't obsess over these numbers, but we do put out a monthly kind of Good Stuff monthly article, just sort of cataloging. We don't list shows specifically number by number, but just sort of give you an overview of what we're doing. And hopefully that's interesting. And it's more, as much like Kyle was saying, for as you're saying, like for us, for other people, maybe it's also just kind of like helpful for us to gauge what's going on, because months go by and we would otherwise just have our head down making podcasts and just having fun doing it, which is good for the most part. And so just kind of a little bit of accountability, I think.
Yeah, a little self-reflection, kind of like there are times I may be like, I don't want to be a podcast never nude, right? I want to actually know what I've got going on sometimes.
Show me your sausage.
Exactly. I'm going to cut all this out. Oh boy.
There's your cold opening. It's cold out. That's why hey. In wrapping up, because we're over an hour already. I don't know how much of this is useful, but
I actually wanted to talk a little bit about stuff I use to listen. Maybe we can do a quick rapid fire wrap up of where we listen, how we listen in those different scenarios.
Yeah, I was going to say the apps maybe and location, and then 3 podcasts we listen to that might not otherwise be like everybody's heard of. I can't think of some. This American Life.
Okay. There you go. Serial. Okay. All right.
Stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path, maybe. So, anyways, where and how do you generally listen to?
Most of the time, it is from my phone. I'm at home, I'm doing stuff, and I'm just listening on my phone. Not with headphones, not in any other. It's typically I'm listening while no one else is in the house, and so I'm afforded the opportunity to just play it on the terrible speakers in my phone. Most of my free time during the day is spent listening to podcasts, whether I'm doing actual work, whether I'm showering, whether I'm cooking dinner. Like, it's all, I want to fill my life with as much information or entertainment as possible while I'm doing stuff. So my phone,
you don't want to think about life.
I don't. I want zero. I want zero introspection on this, on myself, really. And so it's just the for podcast listening, my phone's speaker gets the most workout, which has probably been a bad thing. I mean, especially carrying it into the shower, carrying it into the bathroom while there's steam and stuff. I am not extending the life of my phone very well at all. Hey, and Google, if you're listening, Google Fi, no, it's not my fault. The needing my speaker to be replaced is not my fault at all. Thanks, though. It's a little so. What about you? Where are you listening?
90% of the time is actually just sitting at my desk with playing it off my phone. I find there was a time when I think we all, if you were listening back in the day, you used iTunes or some variation of a computer program to manage your podcasts. But now, just like with music, you want it wherever you happen to be. And so I use Pocket Casts is the app on the phone, which is it's multi-platform, Android and iOS, and it syncs. It keeps track of listens, what you've listened to, what you haven't, that kind of stuff. So it syncs to a desktop player, which I paid $5, I think, to have access to, but rarely ever use, unless my phone is dead or I forgot it somewhere, I guess. But that's 9 times I just throw it on my desk. I don't even put it through speakers, like you said. I wish I had some nice office speakers or something that I could, computer speakers that I would throw it through, because it would just help fill the room a bit more, I guess, maybe. But then again, going back to my earlier comment, the kids who are listening or shortly just outside the door will hear something, and either something they shouldn't hear, maybe, not that I'm listening to anything that bad, but or they'll just hear stuff and want to know who I'm talking to, thinking that I'm having a conversation with someone, and start banging on the door.
It's voices. So,
yeah, voices. Yeah. Whereas music, you can sort of get away with. They recognize what music is and just tune it out if they so choose. So that's actually what, 90% of the time. And then the odd time, like I'm driving and we have a Bluetooth speaker connection or whatever to our stereo, and then I'll throw it on there. I would love, like on road trips, I could zone out for like an 8-hour drive to Winnipeg, and just have a steady stream of podcasts, and love that. But again, kids don't always appreciate listening to This American Life for 2 hours at a time,
right? And it's hard.
Minutes.
And it's hard for you to vet every single podcast. You say you've got 6 hours to fill, and you're thinking, okay, I'll add a bunch of these This American Lives back to back to back to back, just because I want to listen to that show. You can't vet every single episode before you go on your trip, just to make sure that the content in every single one is going to be good enough for your entire family to listen to, or safe enough for your entire family to listen to. So it's really tough for a show you've never heard before. How
does it work for you? Like, you guys are driving, and so presumably you and your wife don't necessarily listen to all the same podcasts exactly at exactly the same time. So is it kind of like jukebox of picking each, sort of put a quarter up and pick the next episode kind of thing, or do you happy to listen to each other's show, or does she throw headphones on when you're listening to something and?
It really depends. So part of the time, I think, is spent where she's sleeping. We're driving through the middle of California, and it's very flat, very straight, nothing to look at. And so
Saskatchewan.
I bet #Canada, man. I'm sure.
No,
I'm sure.
Don't throw Canada under the bus.
Okay.
You can, yeah.
at least that bus doesn't have to turn.
Prairies.
Yeah. So. For me, some of the time is spent with just like a single earbud in my ear, listening to whatever show I decide to put on while my wife is sleeping. Part of the other time, like the majority of the 11-hour drive that we took a couple days ago was us finding new shows to listen to that neither of us had ever heard of, that we picked and chose, if I can put that into past tense, a couple of episodes for us to listen to. Namely, we decided, like, hey, let's listen to some shows about RVing, because that's something that we're kind of interested in right now. and we just chose a couple of different shows, completely different, and I don't think they have any knowledge of each other. Just sort of chose a couple out of random and decided to put them on. It was good. We, after every episode, we would kind of like debrief and be like, man, was that one okay? Was that one an all right episode? Do we want to still listen to this show? Should we continue to subscribe to this one? Should we just get a different one? So it's kind of, I guess there's a democratic process to our general podcast listening in the car,
right?
When we're on the same speaker. Is that kind of the case with you, or do you feel like the headphones
kind of
are
go back and
safer?
forth and pick, like, generally like one or two, especially if the kids are like along and they're doing screen time or whatever, playing something on the iPad or the computer or watching a movie, whatever, then yeah, sort of like tossing back and forth each other's phones, control over the Bluetooth thing, and picking an episode or two. And because I'm happy to, like, again, I think it comes back to, if I wasn't a podcast creator, I wouldn't be probably as interested in stuff that was outside of my topics of choice.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm just as curious, like if Sue's into like a mummy blog or whatever, and they have a podcast, I might not be interested in the topic per se, but I'm still curious about how and why they produce this podcast. And so it's interesting enough to listen along. And generally it's usually about like family stuff or life stuff or whatever. And so it's not like it's torture to listen to, in the same way that probably if she's listening to some of the tech podcasts that I want to listen to or whatever, where it gets pretty dry and nerdy or whatever,
Right.
Then I can only sort of imagine that's probably when she's sleeping, actually, is honestly if I put on like Exponent as a tech podcast I love, because it's just two really smart guys, nerdy as heck, but really smart, talking business and tech and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if you're not interested in that, and you're not interested in podcast creation at all or anything like that, how the sausage is made, then it would be tremendously dry. So my sympathies to her.
Well, listening on your own is sort of that. I do a lot of that, not just at home through my own phone speaker, which the second that Carolyn gets home, I'm turning that off. She doesn't need to listen to the whatever McElroy show I've decided to fill my life with right now. She doesn't need to listen to that. She's not going to enjoy it.
Do you allow, whether it's Carolyn or otherwise, do you allow, I'm air quotes allow, but people to listen to something you're on while
you're there? I've heard you complain about this before. Because the desire is not there for anyone in my life other than maybe me to listen to my own voice, and everyone else hears it way too much. I don't think I've been in the scenario where someone wanted to listen to a show I was on while I was there, which maybe I'm just lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones that their own flesh and blood doesn't want to hear the person they're with's voice in sort of a loud, obnoxious tone. That's fine with me. I guess I've never really had issues with it before. I used to record a whole lot of music and would kind of get weirded out when folks would listen to the music we made in the same room where I was. I think that's probably the same feeling that you get when someone puts your voice on in the house. A voice, though, is very, very, very personal, and music less so, but still, it's one of those art forms that makes you feel super, super vulnerable. And so I can understand just not feeling very good about it. There are also times, speaking of listening alone, there are times where I have needed to fill my brain with things and remove all of the existential dread from my brain while listening to a podcast while I sleep, or at least trying to fall asleep with a podcast in my ears.
Yeah.
I have purchased earphones specific for being able to rest my head down on my pillow and still be able to listen to shows. A lot of times they'll just be not talk shows necessarily, but kind of one booming voice talking about something that I know nothing about. So my mind can sort of wander and not think about anything.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember on Show Me Your Mic hearing other podcasters who would use it as a way to fall asleep. I've never tried it, actually, I guess I should say, but always thought it would keep me more awake than anything else. But I can totally see it. I know there's one, I forget what the name of the podcast is, where he specifically created the podcast as a way to encourage people to fall asleep. It's like so boring.
Oh, interesting.
So dry.
Is it actual speaking or is it just white noise?
Sleeping podcast. Yeah. No, it is like just really boring. Sleep With Me podcast. It's called. And I don't know I think he's still going. Yeah, he is. Like 559 episodes.
Oh my gosh.
It seems like the kind of thing you could do 10 of and that would be,
you need
enough.
you need one, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you'd do one and it'd be like even more boring the second time. That would put you to sleep quicker, you'd think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like I do make it a point to find a new episode every time I fall asleep, just so that my brain can't do the predictive thing of like, okay, I know what they're going to say next. I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what high contrast just needs to turn into. Good night, Chris. It's time for you to go to sleep.
That's the problem. Actually, I didn't want to tell you, but all 20 subscribers have told me that it helps them fall asleep, and that's the only reason they listen.
Hey, perfect. You know what? I am 100% behind that.
Okay, in wrapping up, because my kids are yelling at the door. What are 3 podcasts that you listen to without, you don't have to say all the reasons why, but like 3 shows that are maybe outside the realm of normal listeners, potentially anyways, I guess. Not normal people, but
I swear this isn't a joke, but Food Stuff is one that I listen to. It's one word, and it's 2 women who are talking about the history of either a particular food item, or they've talked about sporks, they've talked about yogurt, and they had 2 episodes on honey. It is incredibly interesting, and I thoroughly enjoy that show. There is another one I think I've also talked about on Twitter called Don't Take Our Word for It. It is a sort of advice comedy podcast with a whole bunch of laughing, and they have a quote-unquote historical guest on each episode that comes back to life, previously dead, now back to life, and has some sort of grudge or like issue to work out, and so they try and give them advice. It's very, very strange, but also incredibly entertaining. And Most Important Meal is one more. We'll put all these in the show notes. It's about breakfast food. Go listen. What about you? Do you have 3 you'd like to share with me, especially? I know you got your Louis Anderson here.
I don't know. In some circles, Exponent would be popular. I know in tech circles, it certainly would be. But if you liked a bit of like, here's what's happening in the world of Snapchat and Apple and Amazon and whatever, and antitrust stuff and things like that, but don't want like, here's the latest, greatest hardware spec and things like that, but just sort of like at a businessy marketing, even worldwide kind of overview. Exponent.fm, I think is the site, is a really good show, but it is popular enough that the guys are doing it as a career almost, basically, I think. So it's not hurting. Another one would be Pessimist Archive podcast, which looks like it puts out an episode once a month-ish. No, not even. And it basically talks about looking at new technology that happened, for example, like the horseless carriage or the Walkman or umbrellas, and looking back at society's reaction to that at the time, and how generally it's kind of silly in hindsight, and kind of gives you a lens to look at modern technology and how maybe all the things of like screens being the death of us or whatever, maybe in 20, 30, 40 years, we'll be looking back and kind of like thinking, well, actually that wasn't as bad as it turned out to be. Like the umbrella. The Under the Influence would be one. 2 more, I'll say. I'm going to cheat, because the Dirtbag Diaries is one that's a storytelling, kind of like if you're like in the outdoors. I don't listen to every episode. I kind of pick and choose random ones when I'm looking for just something completely different. It's just like storytelling from like if you like, I'm not a hiker or a mountain climber or riding my bike down the mountain kind of person, but that's the kind of stories that they talk about on there. So it's kind of just outside my realm of normal interest, but maybe sometimes I aspire to be a part of Dirtbag Diaries, I guess. And then finally, I think this is fairly popular, and I've tweeted about it a lot, I know, but 20,000 Hertz is a podcast about audio and everything from hearing loss and space and cars and how they choose the sound that your car makes when it shuts the door, and evolution of accents and Foley and music and movies and forensic audio, all that kind of stuff, and kind of just nice, fairly well produced 20 to 30 minute episodes on audio.
Well, great. Now I have 67. Look what you did.
Exactly. There you go. We've enabled you to listen to more podcasts.
And there's room for so much more. It changes very, very frequently what is in my queue, what's not in my queue. But this is probably the most I've ever listened to. And I don't listen to all of them, but I'll pick and choose when I want. It's a good time. It's a good time for podcasts. Let's hurry up and get this one out, huh?